Hi there, it's Sasia. One of the main challenges of IELTS academic writing task 1 is vocabulary. In this task, you need to describe a chart, table, map, or diagram, and most likely it's not something you do regularly. In this video, I'm going to give you some essential words and show you how to write high-scoring task 1 sentences. No need to write anything down, there is a PDF for you to download. And you can find a quiz to practice on my Telegram channel called Fast Track IELTS. Search for hashtag FT5 and you get straight to the task. Let's get started! Okay, first of all, let's have a look at this pie chart. Cruise passengers by country, percent. And we have the UK, Germany, France, Italy, and Spain. So, band 5 sentences would be very simple and sound something like 50% of passengers are from the UK. The passengers from Germany are 34% of the total number, and so on. Boring. First of all, we need to replace the verb to be. You should say to represent, to account for, to make up. Britons represent 50% of all passengers. The Germans account for 34% of the total number. Tourists from France, Italy, and Spain make up the remaining 16% of the people on board. That's much better, but we still repeated percents in each sentence. 50%, 34%. So here is what you can do instead. For example, you want to say 20%. You could say 1/5, or every 5th passenger, or 1 passenger out of 5. And then sentences would sound: Britons represent half of all passengers. The Germans account for 1/3 of the total number. Or every 3rd passenger on the cruise is German. These sentences sound much more varied in terms of their vocabulary. They are not the same. In task 1, you often need to talk about nationalities. So here are some ways to do that. For example, people from the UK, the British people, or just the British, or Britons, people from France, the French people, or the French. Don't forget the article, the French. People from the USA, the American people, the American, or Americans. What do you need to write a band 9 sentence? Well, that's where you have to think what lies behind these numbers. What's the pattern? What's the trend? For example, we could say the UK is the largest cruise market. That's the trend. With Britons representing over half of all passengers. And that's my support. I prove my claim with some numbers. Now let's talk about the first sentence in your report. Every task 1 question starts with the words the chart, maps, diagram, shows or show. The verb is always the same. And the easiest way to begin your report is to paraphrase this task sentence. The key is that your sentence is not too similar to the task sentence. So let me give you 4 verbs you can use instead and 2 sentence structures to vary your answer. Okay, the first verb is to illustrate. The maps illustrate the development of Greenfield Town over a 60-year period. If this sentence sounds too similar to the question, you could say, The maps illustrate how Greenfield Town has been transformed from 1960 up to the present day. And has been transformed is the present perfect passive. Someone has transformed the city, or the city has been transformed. Okay, here is another example of how to make two different sentences. This diagram illustrates the process of paper making, or this diagram illustrates how paper is made. You see, sentence structures are different. The next verb is to examine. The chart examines the levels of obesity among 5 age groups in the USA. Or, the chart examines how many people are overweight or obese in the USA and breaks down the results by age. That's how you can refer to age groups, to break down the results by age. The next expression is to give information about. The table gives information about the countries that have the largest oil reserves and the largest oil production. Sometimes you may have a table and a chart in the same task. Then you could refer to them collectively as the data. The data provides information on oil reserves and production in 5 countries. And please note, we say to give information about, but to provide information on. Let's talk about percentages again. Here is a pie chart. Student spending, or what students spend their money on. Of course, we could say students spend 60% of their money on rent and 30% on food, but that's boring and too simple. Here are some more interesting ways to talk about percentages. You could say twice as much or 3 times as much. For instance, students spend twice as much paying rent as buying food. Or 3 times as much money is spent on food as on books. And that's the passive voice. Money is spent. And because the noun money is uncountable, it is spent. You could also say that something is that many times higher. Student expenditure on food is 3 times higher than that on books. Or the figure for renting accommodation is 6 times higher than the figure for buying books. Next, we often need to describe numbers that go up or down. Let me give you some proper vocabulary for that. Have a look at this line graph. At first, it goes up very gradually, just a little bit. Then, more noticeably, and finally, it just jumps up. So here is how we can describe each stage. When you have small changes, you can use the verbs to grow, to rise, to increase, to climb. With adverbs, slowly, slightly, gradually, moderately, or modestly. Student numbers in UK universities grew slightly from 280,000 in 2016 to just over 285,000 in 2017. When changes become more noticeable, you can still use the same verbs, but the adverbs are fast, quickly, rapidly, considerably, significantly. The number of international students increased considerably by almost 20% compared with the previous year. Okay, and finally, they just jump up. If you have big and sudden changes, you can't use all the words here. So you could say to grow, to rise, to increase, dramatically or drastically. It's not something that happens often, so that's more than enough for you. You could also say to jump. It's not very formal, but it's okay, it's acceptable. But you cannot use these adverbs with it. You just say to jump and that's it. The proportion of Chinese students rose sharply from 20% in 2016 to 30% in 2017. Or student numbers increased dramatically or jumped in 2008. I think in IELTS Academic Writing Task 1, you really have an opportunity to improve your score by learning specific vocabulary for the task. Even if you can speak English quite well, you may simply not know words you need to describe charts or maps. An even more serious issue is making complex Task 1 sentences that won't all sound the same. Again, learning phrases and sentence structures is a great way to improve your writing. I've created a vocabulary for Task 1 with essential words, phrases, and Task 1 example sentences that will help you boost your score. It's a paid guide, but you can download a preview for free. And this preview contains sentences from today's video and more. All the links are in the video description box below, and you can download the preview right on the screen. Thank you for watching me today. Good luck with your preparation and your exam.